Hi, my name is Sandy, and I currently live in Santa Monica, California, with my husband and my 2 kids and 2 cats. My background is that for most of my adult life, I was a graphic designer, and I sort of fell into it after university and graduating with a degree in journalism. I had no formal training for graphic design, so I bought a computer and taught myself the usual programs, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign. And during that time, I never really considered myself an artist, even as a graphic designer for the many years that I did it. And I always thought that painting was boring. So I didn't pick up a paintbrush until COVID happened. And even then, I only decided to try to paint because I wanted to make these handmade books and I wanted to create the art for the covers. And somehow the painting took over and I moved from bookmaking to painting on canvas and paper and such. I think that I used to view art through the graphic design lens, sort of the same things of color and tone and composition. And I didn't understand abstract art at all because of my graphic design sensibility. Things had to be a certain way in order to make sense. But now I love abstract art and I feel so much connection to it. The pure expression of emotion and storytelling that abstract art brings to my world is pretty incredible. So I was born and raised in a very small town in the middle of California. And when most people think of California as being the land of surfboards and beaches and palm trees, but where I lived, it was all cows and crops and fields and not very exciting at all. There were no art museums or culture to speak of in the Central Valley at that time. But luckily, my mom was a fine artist, a representational oil painter, and she was exceptionally talented. Because of that, we grew up surrounded by art in our home. Our home was actually the closest art museum. I did have some family challenges growing up, divorce and alcoholic stepdad and depressed mom. And her depression came through acutely in her paintings. Her colors were muted and oftentimes dark and sad. Her subjects mainly from Russian figures or from the 1920s era. And I think that caused me to make the unconscious decision to paint with lighter and brighter colors and to paint abstract as opposed to realism or representational. So since I'm relatively new to the world of painting, I'm still learning about art and artists since I didn't have that formal art background. But so far, the artists that really speak to me are Helen Frankenthaler, Joan Mitchell, Shu Tae-shun, and Cy Twombly. And those are just a few of my current favorites. Right now, I am focusing on 2 different things. One is to learn to paint bigger. I'm finding it hard to translate a study that I've done on a smaller piece of paper to a larger canvas, although I really have this desire to do it. So I think that I will conquer that hopefully soon. And the second thing is I'm trying to silence my inner critic and just create. It's been really hard to not judge my work harshly, but I'm really working on it, and I'm really trying to just get down to the business of creating and not stopping myself every time because I think it doesn't look good or someone won't like it or things like that. Someone just recently said your likes and dislikes are as valid and important as anyone else's. And I had to write that down and put it up on my wall to remind myself because it's true that what you like and don't like, those choices in your work are as important as the viewer who's going to view them. So, or even more important. I think the biggest challenge to being an artist for me is putting my art out there in the world. I'm quite shy and I'm kind of socially awkward, so the thought of having to talk to people about my art is just frightening. The advice I would give to my younger self is don't always listen to your inner critic and external critics. If people tell you that you can't be creative and make a living from it, don't listen to that. Just keep that creativity burning inside you and know that you will be able to do something with it. I've lived most of my life basically doing the opposite of what my parents told me to do. They were of the mindset that you get a job and you keep it for 30 years and then you retire. I changed careers 3 times before I discovered graphic design, and I'd never been happier than when I was creating every day. And I'm currently trying to instill that in my kids so that they know that they can be creative and keep being creative throughout their life. So I have yet to try any unconventional mediums or techniques since I'm still learning about technique and mediums. But hopefully I'll get to the unconventional ones soon. All those what ifs that go on in my mind when I'm creating, they won't let me rest until I figure it all out. I don't usually listen to music when I'm in the art room. Sometimes I'll put on an art podcast or a lesson to listen to, but mainly I work in silence because it's easier to talk to myself when it's silent in the background. I guess what I would hope that people take away from my work is that I would hope that people would see something in my work that resonates with them and that they feel something when they look at it, and it gives them an emotion when they look at it rather than it just being something on their wall decorating it. Thank you so much for listening, and I can be found on Instagram at supartgato, and that's SUPARTGATO. And thank you again.